Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. I'm so excited to have my guest, Tia LaVoie, who is a season guide who helps people discover and find their purpose. Today, we really unpack how to integrate an experience. We have so many experiences that happen in our lives, but these big experiences like a car accident, a medical crisis, a spiritual awakening, a plant medicine journey, a breakup, there's any kind of big event that happens in our life. And then how do we integrate it and how do we understand it and how do we grow and learn from it? Tia is super skilled at paying attention to the language that we use for ourselves and with other people and how incredibly important, impactful, and powerful that language can be. It took me a while to understand where she was going with this podcast, but she is so insightful and full of so much wisdom, and she has so much to offer. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you will as well. Please, if you do, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. So much gratitude if you leave a comment or a review. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. I hope you'll enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hey, Tia, good morning and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you because I love our topic, but more than that, when we did our pre-interview, after you said hello, I was hooked and I'm like, oh my God, I love this person. And
Thanks.
and I was telling you my husband ran down because the energy was so high and he's like, who is this person that you're talking to? And I'm like, I don't know, but there's like this connection and I just love her.
Love a good connection.
Yeah, so I'm so excited because I feel like we could talk about anything and it would be a fun convo.
Yes, please.
So today we're going to talk about integration after a journey. And so specifically like a spiritual journey. And so I was thinking that could be a near-death experience, a sweat lodge, a plant medicine journey, a spiritual awakening, and then also like a medical crisis that kind of changes our life, or a car accident, or some physical changes in our life, or a midlife crisis,
Good.
or when we hit our Saturn return.
Our significant other breaks up with us and we feel the experience of what heartbreak is through our translations, all of the above. Yes.
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 It's like just big things.
That's life, right? You start looking in your world and you start doing self-realization and you start doing your soul work and you start to see that there's way more significance than your ego fears ever wanted you to believe in. So there's that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in your process of getting brave.
Yeah. So what do we do when we have something that's going on? So let's just start with like a specific example. So say we're in a plant medicine journey and we come out of that plant medicine journey and none of it makes sense to us, but it kind of rocks our world.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe like the messages came in code.
Yes, but the thing about it, we have so many conditions that we are brought up with to try and keep us in a space of cycling. And so what happens is we come out of it and we say things like that, like it's in a code and I don't get it. You did get it. That it came to you in a way that you were ready for. And I find that the faster that people outgrow the perception that I don't understand this, I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't know how to read this, I don't know why this happened, I don't know why I saw what I saw. What happens is you keep yourself separated from that knowing. And so instead of, I don't know why and I don't know how and I can't read the code and it came like this, more so just sit back and tell yourself, all right, I'm open. If you just tell yourself you're open, you'll start, and you do it consistently, you'll start to find that more things are revealed to you, or you find an inner overstanding over more things that come to you. Whereas 5 years ago, maybe you would have told yourself, I don't get it. Every time you tell yourself, I don't get it, what you're doing is you're creating more and more of a space, and it's your own space.
Mhm.
But the as fast as you can say I don't get it, you can also say, all right, I'm open to the knowing. I'm open to realizing. I'm open to seeing clearly. I'm open to revelation or the great revealing or whatever it is. That was one of the first things I ever learned from my teacher, is that don't tell yourself you don't know or you don't get it, because that information or that situation or that vision came to you, that encouragement came to you in the best way that it knew how to express itself in your life and the best way that you're ready for it. So it's the denial thing first, is catching yourself in that denial. I don't know, I can't, I don't know how, I don't know why. That right there. Makes
Mhm.
sense?
Well, yeah, it's making me think that by saying that you're creating like a dualism, like it's outside of yourself, and by and it's like really disempowering versus I have all the answers, they're all within me,
Hmm?
right? And
Disempowering and or catalyzing. Like even
mhm.
that. So backstory to that is that my teacher was the first person I ever met that said, what if everything is perfect? Like what if you are perfect? And immediately my ego says, well, what about traumas, and what about these horrible things that happen to us? And he says, well, what if that was perfect too? What if that was there and had to happen in order to get you catalyzed to a place? He was
Yeah.
really big about catalyzations. And so for me, there's nothing that's ever bad. Everything that's unfolding is some aspect of some reflection of myself, light or shadow, that I'm ready to look at and it's ready to be taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yes, and I think like a lot of times in my life when things have gone really downhill, I've always thought, what is the lesson in this? But how do you work with someone, or how do you advise someone who's really like in the thick of like the shit of everything,
mm.
and to be able to look at it in a different way?
So before we ever make change, it is super important and imperative that we have value. We have a value. It doesn't matter what spiritual walk we take or what religion or what we become. If you're not valuing yourself, you won't ever get whatever the base, the foundational teaching of that wisdom is. If you don't have value, no matter what wisdom comes to you, no matter if Jesus or an alien or whatever comes to you and tells you a thing, you won't hold it in value, and so you won't use it in value. The
Yeah.
first thing for any kind of change always is value. Check your value. Do I realize that I'm worth it for this miracle, blessing, wisdom, whatever it is that I need to happen or I deserve to happen? Am I worth it to receive this? When people show up here and they say, hey, I've been diagnosed with 6 months to live or whatever, the first thing I ask them is, do you want to live? And they always kind of, of course. Sometimes people don't. Sometimes people receive medical information and they see it as their exit and they're ready to go, and so be it. And that's their journey between them and their creator. But without value, that person can't heal themselves. Without value, that person won't leave that relationship or go have enough bravery to go into the
Hmm.
new one, that sort of thing. Make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
And how do you work with that? Because I think it's a fundamental issue that so many people have is that they don't feel lovable, they don't feel worthy, they don't feel um, worthwhile, and
Hmm.
so it's super super common.
Hmm.
And
So,
so if we're going to strip it down to like the base layer, that would be the base layer. And
mhm.
so what advice would you give to people to nurture that part?
So if there's someone in front of me and they've got themselves convinced of the story that I can't do that, then I always encourage them, hey, tell me somebody that you love in this life. And they'll say, my mother or my daughter or my husband, or they'll give me somebody. There's always a somebody that was kind to them in a rough patch or loves them unconditionally. And so I say, okay, so it's your mother. And then I say, all right, so the things that you hold against yourself, the things that you just won't allow yourself to permit yourself to openly love yourself by, what if your mother did these things? Would you hold her to the same degree and the same punishment? That's the first thing. Getting someone to connect to someone that they do love, then you ask them, hey, what are 3 words that you would describe this person by? For me, I think of my mother as super persevering. She's super playful. And also she's gentle in the places that most people feel like they need to get very defensive in. And
Hmm.
so looking at those things now, What's happened is you've just asked this person to identify three adjectives, three characteristics about them that you appreciate, that you love about them.
Yeah.
Now, when they tell you this, here's where you get to twist it. When they give you these three words, uh, the thing to then remind the person is, hey, you wouldn't be able to see this in them if it wasn't inherently within you to begin
Yeah.
with. So you can only see those great values, by those great characteristics and qualities, by it being inside of you first. That's the only way you can see it. And you just keep driving that point home. And through consistency and practical application, that person starts to change. Things start to change
Yeah.
anytime we decide to adopt a new idea or outgrow an old condition, all of that.
Yeah.
I think immersion's really important for that. When people are wanting to make big changes, immersion with your guide, your teacher, whoever, go be with them, go be around them, because just being in that space changes your vibration, changes your
Hmm.
transmission for sure.
What about when somebody has a spiritual awakening and when this happens, there's not a community that can hold them and support them because it's super, super common. Then they have this experience, it's transformed their life, and it kind of pulls them a little bit away from their community that they have at that point,
Mhm.
and they don't feel like they have a place somewhere.
So that right there, that opportunity, that situation that unfolds for people, that is their process. That's shamanic dismemberment. Do you understand shamanic dismemberment?
No, uh-uh.
Okay, so a lot of times when we go on a plant journey and we come out of it, and there's that point of integration where we have that opportunity, and we're telling ourselves, or maybe our shadows are flaring and telling us like we can't, we don't know, and we don't know how. All those things right there are a process.
Yeah,
And shamanic dismemberment is one of those processes when you feel completely alone, when you feel like you don't have community, when you feel like the people who have been supportive of you are suddenly not so supportive of you. Those are the indicators that withdrawal is important. Solitude is important. If you think
yeah,
about an animal that lives in a herd or a flock, anytime that they become sick, anytime that they enter into their process of healing whatever it is they need to heal, they typically go off. They typically find their solitude. And one of the
mhm,
biggest lessons in the world is figuring out that alone comes from two words that just forgot to take a breath, all one. And so to
mhm,
get to a space of that knowing of all one, I am in the same, whatever animates my spirit is the same thing that makes the mountains sing, or the same thing that makes the sky so bright, or the same thing that makes the stars twinkle at me at night, or the
mhm,
same things that move me when I come across them in a hike in nature. Those things, that animating force, that spirit, whatever we call it, God, consciousness, love, whatever name we have to articulate it by, that thing, that's the all one. That's the realization that you're not truly alone. Now, in one spiral, in one circle, sure, alone, doubt, fear, all the scary things, they reside right there. But in a realm where you're inspired in love and you take action from your heart, that's a bigger circle encompassing the smaller one. And so that's where we get catalyzed to expand. So when you come out and you think that your tribe's not supportive of you, or the people
mhm,
who have, declared to love you unconditionally and always be there for you, that you don't feel like they're there, it's not that they're not there. They're just a reflection. They're
yeah,
just a 360-degree view of some aspect of yourself, light and shadow. Light and shadow
yeah,
is where we have our contrast. And my teacher used to say, contrast is the classroom.
mhm,
Hmm.
yeah.
So when they're
I
coming out of that and they're feeling that aloneness, that
mhm,
is the hugest indicator of, hey, go be in nature with yourself. Go sit with yourself. Even if the thoughts rush in, even if all the scary things show up, this is your point where you're moving beyond it. And so what you're feeling is you pressing past that border and boundary. Border Patrol does not care if you are
mhm,
out wandering lost in the desert. Border Patrol only cares when you get close to the border.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, it makes me think of a conversation I had yesterday with I was in Mexico for a women's retreat,
Nice.
and one of the girls was I called her. I asked her how she was, and she was struggling a little bit, and asked her if she wanted to talk. And she called me, and she said that she had changed careers, and she had moved out of New York City into another place, and she just quit her job, and she was back in school, and like she's like, "Is it ever going to stop?" right? There's this fear that just like all these massive changes.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, but you're just like so much more aware and in tune of like what's in flow and what's not in flow now. Like before you were just kind of pushing against it and you were going into these places that weren't in alignment and they weren't feeling good and they weren't working for you. And now that you're in flow, right? And everything is in flow for her, then things that aren't in alignment start to appear. And I think that that's super common after a big experience, is that you start to become more aware of your internal dialogue,
Yes.
and then things that are out of alignment don't fit, and so there's this shakeup of energy, and it's good, but it's difficult to go through.
Sure.
But it's beautiful.
Yes, I agree. But so if you think about it like this, right? Exactly what you just said. It's so common. It's not just common, it's literally inherently necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going in one direction in a boat and you have the wake behind you, right? Little waves that come from the boat moving through the water, little waves behind you. If you're going in one direction, then you're going in one direction, that wake never hits you. And it's called a wake. If
Mm-hmm.
you decide to veer left or veer right in that boat, what happens if you go this way? Well, that wake that was behind you when you were going in the original direction is going to hit you from the side. That's all that stuff that shows up. The
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's been waiting, that just been waiting under the surface for the person to realize, like, okay, I'm seeing this, or I'm doing this, or I'm here. When they get to that space, it's confirmation. It is
Yeah.
confirmation of their growth when they get hit with that wake. It's supposed to happen. These things are supposed to bubble up to the surface because
Yeah.
literally they've been waiting there for the person to get in the right frequency and a like vibration to be able to handle that stuff that's bubbling up to the surface. All the things I tell people, like, I tell people, hey, this stuff is gonna, it's gonna shake things up, it's gonna bubble up, it's gonna come out, it's supposed to. And your ego fears are gonna give you the craziest stories you have ever heard in your entire life. Just know that it's an offering. It's not an obligation, it's just an offering. Your ego fears are trying to tell you the story so that you will get shook up enough, that you will get refined enough and catalyzed enough that you'll start making different choices. That's
Yeah.
the power of this. It's that. And so people look at things and I tell them these things are supposed to show up. The crazy ego fear stories are supposed to show up. It's necessary, but it's a confirmation that you've made your growth. Hmm?
It makes me think of my story was a little bit different than that with the wake story, was that I was swimming upstream for a long time.
Why were you
And
swimming upstream?
while I was swimming upstream and I didn't realize it. And then I started to realize that I could go with the flow of the river, right? And I was swimming upstream for so long, and I was kind of like the same thing of like pushing through things that weren't working,
Hmm?
things that weren't in alignment, just trying to like push through them, push through them, push through
Because
them.
you're a
And
fighter. You're a warrior.
yeah.
Hmm?
And then I realized that when things are in flow and when things are in alignment, everything's in flow.
We're always in flow, but just you were choosing to go upstream when
Yeah.
downstream's way easier and it's pretty and you can pass all the pretty things.
Yeah.
But you had to go through your lessons to
Yeah.
get you to be like, oh, maybe I ought to go downstream. Maybe
Right,
it
right.
just feels better. That was your process. We all go
Mhm.
through a process. And in
Yeah.
that process, the fear stories show up. But like I said, it's just confirmation that when the fear stories get so crazy, they're
Mhm.
only becoming desperate because the old stories don't work on you anymore. That's confirmation that you've outgrown those old stories and the conditions that they bring. And so when you've outgrown those, then your fear stories pop in and they say, okay, like she's getting close to the boundaries, she's getting close to expansion. We got to give her something. And so those crazier and crazier, more desperate stories happen. Desperation is just an indicator of a threat. It's the
Yeah.
same way people puff up or things in the wild will bite or hiss or,
Yeah.
show their teeth. The only time that animals ever act that way is when they sense a threat, and people are no different from that. they
Yeah.
they will bite and they will puff up and they will say all kinds of things and they'll hiss and they'll bark and they'll growl. It's only because they sense a threat. And if you recognize that about yourself, that when
Yeah.
you're being inspired from a sense of threat, a perception of threat, then you start seeing it in other people. And there's your contrast. And when you start seeing other people, you can have compassion for them rather than just react to whatever you translate their attitude or their behavior is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for learning that it's okay to go downstream. Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about self-doubt, because I feel like that's a really common one where we're on a path, we feel like we're doing really well, and then maybe our own self-doubt comes in, or somebody else's judgments come in, and then we take them in as if they are our own and they're not. I feel like that's super common. I've seen that in myself. I've seen that in other people. And I feel like it's a big one to work through consistently.
Mm-hmm. So self-doubt usually walks hand in hand with the conversations of I should, or I could, or I would.
Yeah.
So when you catch yourself, you hear yourself saying those things, then that's when you know you're in that process. When those indicators show up, then it's good to make sure that you're turning and facing them and not trying to resist them, not trying to tell yourself that they're not there. And
Mm-hmm.
you said it, other people's stories show up and they're not our stories. Maybe they're not, but that story showed up from them as a reflection of some aspect of you. You start to take a look at life as, okay, this is a 360-degree view. When you start to live that way, then you stop reacting to it and you start responding to it. You get
Mm-hmm.
responsible with your power. If you don't do that, then you just stay in a state of reaction, and reaction is a repeated action. So, a repeated action, when you find yourself reacting, what you're doing is you're trying to familiarize a threat. And familiarizing yourself with a threat from your previous point in your life, what happens is you tell yourself that the thing that's happening right in front of you is like when this happened when you were 22, or this happened when you were 16, or this happened when you were 9. That's why people stay in reactive states. And so when you catch yourself in a reaction of doubt, the thing to do is sit back and take a look at what you really know.
Mm-hmm.
You tell everybody else all the great wisdom and advice that you give to your tribes and your friends and your coworkers and all the things. You sit back and you say, what would I tell my partner at work? What would I tell my child? What
Yeah.
would I tell my best friend if she was going through something like this? That is what will get you out of that space of doing the thing. I remember going to a meditation class in my early 20s, and the gentleman says, okay, clear your mind, clear your mind. And I just thought, oh my God, I don't know how to clear my mind because there are 10,000 conversations happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I met my teacher, I said, hey, I have this question about clearing your mind. Like what? And he says, clear your mind? How do you do that?
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I thought you were the great master. Like I thought you knew how to clear your mind. He's like, I don't know how to clear my mind. And he says, minds aren't here to be clear. And he says, minds are here because, first he says, localize your mind. Where is your mind? I thought about it. And he says, if we were to cut open a brain, take a
Yeah.
look, where could you point? Where's the mind? And I said, I don't know. It doesn't make sense now that I think about it. And he says, exactly. Your mind is your observer. Your mind is the thing that sits back and takes all of this in.
Mm-hmm.
When you get rolled by life, it can't feel it, but it observes what you're doing. And the way that the mind observes what you're doing is by the value that that mind allows itself to have on your life and who you are and what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the doubts come up, that's you recognize as an opportunity. And the other thing, I noticed that a lot of people beat themselves up when they come to their realization. They'll come to, oh wow, in this moment I was being doubtful. And then they'll say, well, why are you doing that? You've done all this work and you spent all this money and you've invested all this time. Why are you
Mm-hmm.
still being doubtful? It's the same with cutting cords.
Yeah.
Let go. Everyone says, I want to let go. I want to let go. I need to let go of this. Let go of this past relationship. Let go of this work. Let go of this guilt. Let go of this shame. Let go of whatever it is I beat myself up over and find myself in a state of self-deprecation.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll go and they'll learn how to let go. So even what you're letting it go to is still your perception. But if it's your perception and you created this idea and this concept about it that you live by and you create from, that you have to let go,
Mm-hmm.
where do you let go? And
Mm-hmm.
so that was my big question right after my teacher passed. And I lived with that and I thought, what is this letting go? It just doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense. And I am not the most practical person, but I do see things. And one of the things that I noticed was, okay, this is a cycle. This is a hamster wheel. It makes a lot of money. People looking for services and books and knowledge and teachings and lectures and retreats of how to let go, when letting go is a circle. And so if you want to get to the truth of something, then you turn your circle into a spiral. And the way that you do that is you start peeling off a little bit of the wallpaper.
Yeah.
And then you start running with it, and then you allow yourself to go lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
letting go, that grew into something for me that was just, I'm expanding beyond. I've outgrown this. That way, I'm not resisting what I learned and what I went through in that process of learning about letting go, which then leveled me up to an understanding of outgrowing. I have
Mm-hmm.
outgrown this old condition. And
Yeah.
so our conditions that we have, every time we break through one of those conditions, then we level up. And then we level up some more. And then we level up some more. So when
Mm-hmm.
self doubt shows up, just know you're in that process of leveling up through some particular condition for you.
Are you saying that the letting go is more about diving into what it is and peeling back the layers
Yes.
and exploring that concept because we're not just going to let it go? It's like diving really into it
Yes.
more deeply. Yeah. And then that makes me think of too when people have, and this has happened to me so many times and so many people I know too, where we're doing our self work, we're doing our self exploration, and then we're like, damn it, this thing is here again
Mhm.
and I already worked on this so many times and I've already processed through this. And oh my God, it's here again. And that's the peeling back of the layers where we just go deeper and deeper and spiral
Yes.
in and in and in and in. And just because we did a huge process of letting go or releasing doesn't mean that we won't have to circle back and do it again and maybe again and again.
Yes. You're
Mm-hmm.
going deeper, that you're
Mm-hmm.
taking a deeper truth. But that's that beating up I was talking
Yeah.
about. You find
Yeah.
it and then you say things like damn it. Or sometimes I'm Southern,
Yeah.
like I would never think to, but people put their word for the universe, creator, love, God in front of that word, super pause, damn it. Think
Yeah.
about what you're doing when you say that. You're
Yeah.
literally and there's when we use that expression, there's always emotion behind it. No one ever says a rote, damn it. Nobody ever says that. It's always a or
Yeah.
whatever it is, but there's
Yeah.
always emotion pushing that. And so
Yeah.
when you use that kind of vernacular, what happens is you're literally putting it out here for things to start getting flubbed up and dammed up
Yeah.
and all the things. Just a thing to be aware of.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's like, yay, it's here again. We're going to work on it and go deeper.
That's it. There it is, Nikki.
Uh-huh.
Transformation.
Well, and I think also when we're wanting to like cut a cord or get rid of something, then there's that dualism too.
But
It's
what are
like
you cutting?
well, no,
What?
that's what I'm saying. It's about embracing it. It's about honoring it. It's about embracing it. It's about exploring it. It's not
Mhm.
about getting rid of. I mean, that's the thing about meditation too, is that people want to meditate and then they don't want to have the thoughts, and then they separate the thoughts from themselves. But the thoughts are part of it. They're going to come up and they're going to pop up, right?
Yes.
And so it's not about getting rid of anger. It's not about getting rid of people. It's not about getting rid of trauma. It's about exploring it and finding those layers, and then there's a process of embracing it. So I'm guessing that's that like a big piece of that integration, right, is embracing the shadow.
Yes. Everyone has one.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when they go into doing their spirit work, I think a lot of times they're not warned about that. And so what happens is they go and they start to learn about frequency and vibration and manifesting and aligning and all the good things. And whoever they're learning from doesn't tell them, hey, at some point your shadow's gonna come onto the scene. It's
Hmm.
supposed to, because this is your catalyst and your refinement.
Yeah.
And so you gotta learn how to work with it instead of trying to resist it or run from it. People spend lifetimes running from their shadows, and there's
Yeah.
no reason to. So, by understanding the originations of your shadow, by understanding where these aspects of you come from,
Yeah.
you literally give birth to your fate and destiny, which as a Scorpio, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's been true for me. Like every time I've had a big awakening or a big self-realization, um, then life gives me a big, huge test to walk
Yeah.
through after
Yeah.
that. And now I'm almost expectant, where
It's a
it's
it's
like,
a that's
yeah,
the process that you're
yeah,
supposed to get tested after you get the knowledge or get the sword or whatever the thing is. You're
yeah.
supposed to go through that. And I think people have been so conditioned to think that they're doing something wrong when that test shows up. But that test is the confirmation that you got the big magical
Mm-hmm.
blessing. That's
Yeah.
supposed to be happening. I feel the same way about suffering. It's not there to keep us down. It's not an endurance competition. It's not a marathon. What it is it's a catalyst to get us to look at our stuff so that we can outgrow it, heal from it, do whatever is necessary so we don't, pass it down to lineages beyond us. That's why
Mm-hmm.
they happen. Nothing is bad. Everything's here trying to give us a lesson. It's trying to get us to
Mm-hmm.
see, trying to get us to go deeper without beating ourselves up over realizing that we
Yeah.
deserve to go deeper.
Well, I see so many people that like get attached to a story of sexual abuse, a story of being in a bad relationship, a story of having a narcissistic act, whatever the story is, or the story of grief, and they hold on really tightly to that story, because in
Let
some
your
way I'm,
story grow.
huh?
Let your story grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that story is just that's one chapter.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. That's
Right.
the
It's
suffering.
not the end. That's right.
Yeah. You're in your process. I I had a lady this morning and we're sitting in the hotel lobby and I'm eating a hard-boiled egg and we're having a conversation and she says, "Gosh," she goes, "I can't believe how dumb I was." And I said, "Hey," I said, "in all good conscience, I'm a human, you're a human. I can't let you talk like that around me." I said, "That's a vibration. I don't want to embrace that." And I said, so we started having this conversation and I said, "Why do you talk to yourself like that? Why do you speak?" And I said, "If you're speaking that way to yourself in public, to yourself, then I can
Yeah.
only imagine how you speak to yourself when it's just you in private." And
Yeah.
she looks and she says, "Yeah, I don't do good." And so I said, "What's your story?" And she says, "What do you mean?" And my grandmother was the most amazing storyteller I have ever come across. And she could lay down a story. And my grandmother, I didn't realize it was shamanic wisdom when I was that age learning it. But my grandmother taught me the thing I learned from her was that everyone has a story. And if you can understand that story, if you can
Mm-hmm.
understand where it came from, then you can hold it in a different light. Then you can do different things with it. It becomes malleable instead of being, stuck in concrete or stuck on the rocks. It becomes something that you can work with and recognizing that you're still in your process. You're right here, right now. Whatever's happening around you right now, you're in your process. And so
Mm-hmm.
allow yourself to be in the process. It's not that you can't do it right. It's not that you're so dumb or unworthy or invaluable or whatever the story is, yours or anyone else's reflection of you. But it's not that you're those things. That's your refinement. That's your catalyzation. The story of, you said it, sexual abuse. The story of sexual abuse, some people will take that story and they'll say things like, "You know what? I was completely screwed over in the beginning of my life with all this trauma and all this sexual abuse, and now the world owes me." So when we
Yeah.
get around those people, we either in our own woundings are completely attracted to them, or in our knowing we say, "Oh, hey, I wish you well in that. Thank you. I love you."
Yeah.
hmm So we notice that that's one aspect of that story of sexual abuse. Another aspect of that is that somebody goes through life, they experience enough things that are uncomfortable, painful, they hurt, and they say, "You know what? Something has to change. I got to do
Yeah.
this different because I'm the only one that can do it for me. So I got to learn it a different kind of way." And then they
Yeah.
start their self work and their soul work. And so they start going through life, and that becomes their transmission, which then, whatever you put out in this world, it gets reflected back to you. Whatever
Yeah.
you're seeing out here is a reflection of you. And so
Yeah.
whether you see the light or the shadow, that's entirely up to you, what you decide to look at. But we get this reflection and we say, okay, so now I understand that sexual abuse was my trauma, and my trauma was my initiations,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
initiations of outgrowing these horrible things. It's
Yeah.
not to devalue anybody's experience. It's literally you're still in your chapter. You're still looking at I was sexually abused, and so the world owes me and people owe me, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
say all the right things to get people close, but do everything I can to push them away because I'm still in self-sabotage mode, because I'm in
Yeah.
survival mode, because I've gone through these things and I haven't healed from them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's like we can get stuck in that track and
Dude,
then
you're just
y-
stuck in a chapter.
yeah,
Huh?
yeah. And in the same vein, I think there's also people that have an awakening experience
Hmm?
and then they want to hold on to that experience as if that is their reality all the time, and that's not possible either. So when they have that awakening and then some difficulty starts to creep in, then they might push that away. Does that make sense?
Can you tell me a little bit more about the people in the awakened experience?
Okay, so sometimes people have a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening,
Okay.
and everything is like beautiful, rainbows and sunshine and unicorns, and everything's just
Yes.
perfect.
Hmm.
And then they say you go to a meditation retreat, right?
Okay.
And you go to a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, you hit this experience of oneness with the world and unity, and then you come back and you go to work and things are awful at work. I don't know, whatever, and you get slammed back into reality. But you're wanting to this grasping action, right? You're wanting to hold on to that experience and keep that your reality all the time. But that's also not possible to hold on to that all the time.
You ready?
You're gonna tell me it is?
I mean, it's not on me to tell anybody else what what their truths are. I think we all
Yeah,
come to our truths in the best of way. I can give you my 2 cents.
yeah.
I'm happy to. So you said something really important. Nikki, I really hope that you give yourself enough credit every day. I hope that you wake up realizing that you're on a really good road and you're going to help so many people in this world. Like I see that it is so clear. It
Mhm.
just keep doing what you do, please.
Thank you.
So you said something really important. You said they go to this meditation and they go to this retreat and then they come back, and I think that's where you inserted that it's not possible. And I say, okay, yeah, for sure, okay.
Mhm.
And they go back to work and they go in the office and they get slammed. If you've gone away and you've taken in the knowledge that you found to be truthful for you and whoever brought you that knowledge, whoever gave you that message, and then you go back to work, you go back to your life, that going back aspect, that's that's your classroom to
Mhm.
learn how to
Mhm.
integrate all those really feel good feelings that you
Yeah.
were experiencing at that retreat or the mountaintop or Peru or wherever it is you went.
Yeah.
That's that right there. To go to this place, to invest your time and invest your vulnerability and your money and all the things, and then go back into a space and still try to hold on to old conditions. That's
Yeah.
what that's reflecting for you.
Yeah.
So when you go back, when you feel like you're getting slammed, that's when you say, okay, on day 3 at that retreat, we went over this, and this is what these are other objects and avenues that I can use in order to respond to the situation, rather than me look at it like I was looking at it before I went on my magical retreat.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I
Okay,
hear you.
thanks for hearing me.
Yeah. I mean, I went on a 3-day women's medicine retreat not so long ago,
Okay.
and it was a brutal experience for me.
Why?
And I had so many people have come up to me, so many people, and they're like, "It was your initiation." Um,
Because you're a warrior.
it was hard. It was hard, and it's been taking a couple of months to
But why was
integrate.
it brutal? What made it brutal for you?
Um, do you want me to share what happened?
Go for it. It's your podcast.
I was never planning on it, but I will. So
Thank you.
I helped organize this retreat, and so I've come into the community. I've been kind of new.
Okay.
I came into the community pretty hard and pretty fast, and I've gotten really close to a lot of women. I
Nice.
run one of the women's groups, and I've become really close to the people that are leading it. And I was asked to organize this retreat, and and so the people that know me, like, they are not threatened by me at all, at all.
Yeah. That's why they
But
know you.
but the people that don't know me at all were threatened by my presence, my like when I step into myself and I get big, right? They were threatened by that and attacked me in a group in the in the group setting.
Attacked you like what?
Um, like verbally, just started attacking me, and
Did you fight back?
I was I didn't
Good.
I my walls went up for sure. My
Okay.
walls went up for sure, but I basically was like, this isn't mine, this is yours. I'm really good at exploring my shadow, and I wasn't trying. I was just being me. I
Mm,
wasn't trying to do anything. And so I stood my ground. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell back. I wasn't
good.
mean back.
So in other
I
words, you passed your initiation.
but it's been painful, and then like self-doubt would creep in, and then I would get past it, and then like for me to reflect back and see what was happening from an outside perspective, it's really clear. And
Good.
for every single person that's reflected back to me, it's super clear what happened. But then there's like the self-doubt that's been creeping in and out, and so everyone has been talking about this was such an initiation for me. And I think 6 months ago I would have my feathers would have gotten ruffled, and I would have fought back. And
Six
um
months ago, you weren't ready.
yeah, yeah.
Six.
Um s-
That's why it happened now. 6 months ago, you weren't ready. You just said it. That's your process.
yeah.
That's it right there. 6 months ago, you weren't ready because you would have handled it like this. And if you had handled it like this, then they would have had to feed you to the snakes or whatever the thing was. So
Oh, it would have been ugly,
you
yeah.
made it. Hmm? Good job. Good job on
Yeah,
your level up, Nikki.
yeah. It's still, though, it's still self-doubt, still
Why?
creeps. I don't know, I guess conflict, like I don't love conflict. And I've gotten to the point in this situation where I have gotten clarity that me and this person should be best to not share space. Like we can share space, and that'll be fine, and I can like let things go.
Where are
But
you letting him go to?
where am I let it go? Yeah. I guess this is the piece I need to sit with too, is not feeling comfortable in a circle with them. Um due to like a feeling of safety, and then also feeling like I should be able to create safety within myself no matter who's around. So there's my
There's your level up.
piece there's my piece that's still lingering.
Okay. What's the story? Where's it come from?
What's the story?
Yeah. What's the story of your doubt? Whose voice is that story? Whose voice does that story roll around in your head? Whose voice is it?
I don't know.
It's a thing to look at.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You mean like about the safety piece?
The doubt piece, where does your doubt come from? Who first gave you the story of doubt in your life? And you
Oh,
just keep
yeah.
going back and keep going back and start
Uh,
looking at that. And then once you go
oh, yeah,
back, you
okay.
make
Okay.
peace. And when you make peace with it, then it magically dissipates at whatever way it's expressing itself at this point in your life. That's your growth. So like we were
Yeah.
talking earlier about being like super aware of the words that you use, making sure that you're creating from good words instead of words that are going to negate and create resistance for you. When you're experiencing a kind of stimulation in your world, you perceive it and call it doubt. You perceive it and say, I can't, or it's
Mhm.
not possible. But in actuality, that leveling up is us having this conversation. Not me personally, not me as a Tia, us as these two beings that are sitting together,
Yeah.
realizing a specific light and realizing, recognizing a connection between us. And in that, that not only lights me up, that lights you up, and whoever else gets to witness that. And the thing is whoever is witnessing that, they're also in connection to that.
Yeah.
That's that all oneness. That's that alone turning into all one.
Yes. No, I hear you. Yes. Because we're never really alone. Yeah.
We are as alone as we perceive ourselves to be. If alone is someone's truth, if that's what they choose to feel, choosing is also this giant opportunity. And literally every moment of now, we can choose to look at something different. We can choose to perceive it. My teacher used to always say, subtle shifts in perspective create huge changes in reality. And I have
Yeah.
seen that to be true, not just with myself, but with all the people I get honored to work with. And I
Yeah.
love that. And it just takes just
Yeah.
one little thing. Hey, you're worth it and you're worthy to receive that prayer petition or that blessing that you want.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me what happens when people realize that within themselves. I love that. The God, the divine within, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That is an amazing thing. That's it's a pretty magical feeling to be able to witness that. Mhm.
Tia, tell us about like all the things that you do and all your offerings and all the things that you're into and your background and things like that.
All the things that I'm into. Okay. Hi, my background. So I come from a pretty famous Cherokee swamp witch named Lily Mae Harrelson. And Lily Mae Harrelson is what you would call a conjurer. And growing up, my great grandmother would always go into the forest after midnight and approach a specific flower from a specific direction. Otherwise, it won't give you its medicine. I
Hmm.
come from that kind of path and that kind of lineage. I moved to Colorado and I worked at this nude hot springs. And one day the groundskeeper says, "Hey, I need you to go meet the holy man." And I said, "Where's the holy man? Let's go meet him." And he says, "Las Vegas." And I said, "Las Vegas, Nevada?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "He's a holy man." Like, and that, I'm thinking,
Yeah, right.
trafficking or something, just, out there. And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Let me take you." And my big turning point in my life was that day that I met that gentleman. His name's Patrick Collard. And he's probably the greatest man I've ever known. And so I went to Las Vegas. We met up, instant connection, recognized all the things. And then I stayed with him for about 7.5 years. And I saw things that when someone tells me something in conversation about, it's impossible and it can't happen, because of my work with him, I can't allow myself to believe in their truth. And so for me, anything is possible in this life. I see it
Mm,
happen all the time. And so that feels good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Thanks. Hmm.
And I'm going to put all your socials in the show notes, but what are some of the offerings that you have and how can people connect with you?
So you can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Sowing Fire Tribe. Sowing is SOWING, like you are, planting things in the ground. So Sowing Fire Tribe there. You can always contact me from Facebook or Instagram. I answer my messages personally. What do we offer? We take people on magical trips around the world. We're going to France next June. We're going to Peru and Bolivia next October. I do mentorships, group apprenticeships, one-on-one sessions. And so find those places, get in touch if this resonates for you. Thanks. Thank you for this,
Yeah.
Nikki. Thanks for,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
for having
for
me.
that was fun. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.